George Cannizzaro here with a QA report for DUI development 26EB-13-008. This is for the 387th Military Police Battalion DUI. We found several issues during inspection, all of which will need to be addressed by the supply room in order to close out this contract and get it paid. So let me show you first the hub and the dies submitted for this development. First of all, on the purchase description that you received as part of this contract, there were instructions on page 2 about how to mark and number the tools to identify it as belonging to this unit. So table 2 here on page 2 of the purchase description called for the tools to be marked 387 MPBN for 387th Military Police Battalion, and then to have the tool number 6898 applied to all 3 tools with an identifying prefix, AD for the master die, BD for the second die, and then MH for the hub. If you take a look at the surfaces of the tools submitted, we'll start with the dies. There's D6898B for the B die, then A etched in for the A die, but on the hub this was marked the same as the B die, D-6898B. Again, referring to the purchase description, the hub needs to be marked correctly, MH-6898. The 2 dies have issues with their current manufacturer. Both of them are off-center. The B die in particular, you can see even without any kind of ruler or micrometer that the design is well over to the right of the die's design surface. Similar to the A die, if you take a ruler with 32 of an inch or a micrometer, you'll find that the design is shifted toward the right side of the design surface. In conjunction with our general specification for the manufacture of hubs and dies, MIL DTL-482, which is called out on page 1 of the purchase description, the surface of every tool has to have the design centered on the design surface. So these dies can't be accepted as they are. In addition to those surface issues, they're also lacking a number of different further identification markings, again required in that general specification for hubs and dies. Each one has to have its steel type engraved on the top design surface, S7. It needs the phrase US prop, standing for US property. It needs the date of manufacture, month and year are sufficient. So for example, 02/13 for February 2013. And it also needs the hallmark of the company that manufactures the hubs and dies. So again, the dies in the hub all need on their surface, in addition to the unit name and tool number on page 2, they need the other information specified in the general specification, which is the US property stamp, the date of manufacture, the hallmark or name of the company manufacturing, and the type of steel, which is S7 required for hubs and dies. The final thing about the hubs and dies is we received them. First of all, the dies do not have a 5-degree bevel. That's another requirement specified in the purchase description that was given at the start of development. The dies must carry a 5-degree bevel, and both dies came with one shaved side. This has to be eliminated in order for TIOH to take possession of tools. We can't have any kind of ridge or anything else used in a particular method of stamping from one manufacturer. These are tools that are intended to be loaned out, so they have to be totally round with a bevel and no shaved edge. Now when the development package came to us, the 3 tools were not capped with wax. Again, that's a requirement stated both in the general specification for hubs and dies and also in the purchase description you received. They were not capped with wax, and while they were wrapped in bubble wrap, they were left loose in a box much larger than needed to contain these 3 tools. And as a result, they were sitting on top of the finished samples. And I'll hold this up sideways, but if you can see, what happened was on a number of the finished sample pairs, because the dies were laying on top of them, it forced the pins through the back of the catch thereby rendering most of the catches that were submitted unusable, because you essentially can stick yourself pretty badly with the pin pressing through. So a reminder that when hubs and dies are shipped, they're always to be capped with wax, wrapped securely, but then also placed securely in the box so that they don't damage or in any other way mark up the samples. The next issue we found has to do with the raw strikes submitted. And I'll set these reports out here on our electrospectrometer. I ran an analysis of 3 of the raw strikes submitted. That's a typical number we pull to do QA on. In addition to looking at the quality of the design surface to be used in EDM, we also require, again, in the purchase description you received, electrolytic copper or sterling silver, electrolytic copper being at 98.5% or higher copper content to enable it to be the best electrode possible. All 3 of these samples, and I'll be scanning and sending you these reports, but all 3 of these samples are clearly identified by our testing method as being Charlie 230 or red brass 8515. So these raw strikes as such cannot be accepted because the copper content is far below that of electrolytic copper, so all of these will be returned to you, as well as the hubs and dies. Again, for new dies to be made with the design centered, the die beveled, the die free of any machined edge, and then also having all the correct inscription information on the top. Final thing, in addition, submitted with the development set were 18 struck pieces that had not been trimmed. They had been enameled. This was not a required element of the development set, and I'm not quite sure why these were sent, but these will all be returned also because we have no use in terms of archiving or QA testing for these items. So as of now, everything that was submitted for this development set, the only thing that's been tested and accepted are the finished sample pieces themselves. What I'm going to do is I'm going to return everything else to supply room, and what needs to happen is we need to receive everything back correct on or before Monday, April 1st, and if we don't, we will return even the finished samples. The contract will be canceled and we'll pursue the development elsewhere. If you have any questions, you can get in touch with me, and I'll also be sending an electronic report along with this video report that spells out the same information. Thank you.